I would say I'm just kind of addicted into investing and buying these properties and obviously I still do the real estate stuff too. Like I like doing both of it, the rental properties I'd say is my long-term future. That's my retirement plan. I invest fully in real estate. I've never had a real job. I don't have 401k, stuff like that. Yeah, I could invest on my own, but so that's, my long-term goal is.
From cornfields to high-rises, office to industrial, houses to hotels, and every other asset class in real estate, we cover the people, the projects, and the profit. Welcome to the Investing in Iowa Show. This show is for go-doers, action takers, and business owners. It's for people like you who are sick of Uncle Sam taking a huge bite of your apple. If you're looking to get ahead of what's taking place in Iowa, learn who is doing what, and how you can get in on the action, you're in the right place. Hosted by Neil Timmins, an Iowa native who has been involved in over $300 million in real estate right here in Iowa. Recording in studio from West Des Moines. Here's your host, Neil Timmins.
I've got Gavin Faith here on the show. Gavin, welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm glad you're here. Say for the audience to say, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
Gavin Faith. I'm originally from Fort Dodge, Iowa. I am a realtor. I'm an investor, ex-professional motocross racer, actually. It's a little bit unique. But yeah, just kind of do anything I can to, I dabbled in quite a few other things with renting, flipping, anything real estate related, pretty much.
Motocross. All right. You and I know each other. We've connected, outside of this podcast. I think you've got one of the more interesting backstories I've ever heard. Take me back to how in the world you landed in that space from the beginning.
It's a pretty wild story, especially coming from Iowa. It's not a huge motocross area. We have snow on the ground 6 months of the year or whatever. My dad was into dirt bikes. He rode when he was younger. Obviously wanted his son to ride. And I got a dirt bike when I was little. We, went off, did local races and just for fun. And yeah, through middle school and up through high school, I was get better and better, starting to win stuff locally, try a couple regional races here and there. I was okay. It wasn't the best, but my curve was pretty good on learning and accelerating through that. So graduated high school and didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought maybe be an electrician or something like that, maybe go to college. Didn't really have any plans to do anything. Obviously, I loved racing dirt bikes. It's, every kid growing up wants to be a professional athlete. I was like, well, let's give it a shot. So I packed up all my things. I graduated a quarter of the way through my senior year early. And so the fall of, I think it was 2009, I packed everything up, moved to a training facility in South Georgia, actually. It's one of the best training facilities in the world. There's kids all from the world there, Brazil, Australia, Europe, all over. Went down there. It was pretty good investment. It's like going to college. I think it was like $18,000 a year. So to be down there, parents helped me out initially with that. I was pretty good, had some potential, and just trained my butt off. Lived at this facility, had a gym on site.
Just everything you do, you're breathing.
Yeah, literally. I lived in a camper for 4 years or so. Even when I turned pro, I was still living in a camper. But yeah, on the site, we had our gym there. We had multiple tracks, supercross track, motocross track. We had gym trainers. We had on-track trainers. We had a part shop there. Basically, I went to town to get groceries. The rest of it, lived there, worked on my bike there, had a little shed to basically do everything. It was a busy schedule, and you had to devote your life to it like anything if you want to be good at it and be successful, especially on the professional athlete side of things. You really have to go all in to make that work.
How long are you in school there for? How long's that last?
However long you want it to. It's a training facility.
Yeah, really school. It's
yeah. So, I mean, you can always learn new stuff, and really it's maintaining and just pushing the very, very edge of obviously you need to be fast to do anything, and then obviously endurance is huge in motocross, believe it or not. You're wrestling around a 230-pound motorcycle for 30 minutes or whatever. It's fighting G-forces and stuff. It takes a ton of strength and endurance, which wasn't necessarily my strength, but I ended up making it work on a more of a shorter race type deal, indoor stuff. And yeah, so turned pro in 2011. Got an opportunity to ride for Factory Honda in Australia. Actually, is my debut. Actually, I'm still friends with him today. I ended up riding for them for 7 years, but he was over at Millsaps Training Facility, is the name of the training facility. And he saw me ride one day. We were all trained. I knew he was coming over there. We were riding Supercross. Like, here he comes. So I had to, show what I had basically. And he never really heard of me. I did okay in amateurs. I had Honda support in amateurs as well too. Top 5, top 3 nationally. So decent, but you got to be very, very tip top to kind of get a factory ride in America. Went there and started my career in Australia. And like I said, I was there for 7 years, not consistently. Go there for 2 months, do their Supercross series. Then I would come back to America, race in Germany, Munich. I was king of Munich 1 year, king of Dortmund another year. Won a car over there, which is kind of cool story. So I just go there on the weekend, race. They have the bikes there. I would bring my suspension and maybe your handlebars or whatever. And then the third leg of my season would be to race in American Supercross, later transition to American Renocross. Supercross, for those of you that don't know, is racing in a football stadium. Basically, they haul thousands of pounds of dirt in or hundreds of truckloads of dirt and build a Supercross track there. It's a very, very dangerous sport. So that's one part of racing I don't really miss. It's whether training day to day, you don't know if you're leaving the track in an ambulance that day or not, depending. And it's all mechanical too. There's thousands of parts on your bike. So one of them fails and at the wrong spot on the track, you're flying 70 foot in the air and it could be damaged. Yeah, definitely. Some guys are, I shouldn't say call it luck. Some of it's luck and unluck, especially when you are dealing with motorsport when things can break, especially with that you're, a car race and your car breaks, there's not as much consequences where that you're flying through the air. If you're hitting whoop sections, if your bike shuts off at the wrong point in time, that's always kind of in the back of your mind. Like you got to block that stuff out. But anytime you deal with that, that's one thing that was stressful. Or if you mess up, stuff can end very quickly, hit the ground very hard. And yeah, I got a lot of that. Eventually ended up, ruining my career with a major back injury. But yeah, I have a lot of plates and screws and stuff along the way. So
it's incredible. Is there money? I don't know enough about the sport.
Yeah,
money.
Yeah.
In the sport.
Yeah. So the very top level, millions of dollars, the top guys right now winning everything. And the Supercross level are, they're probably not making 10 million, but, north of $5 million a year. We don't have public salaries and stuff like that. So nobody really knows unless you're in on things. But then it drops off pretty quickly though. So, if you're the top guy, you're making over 5 million a year. So if you're the 20th place guy in a main event, you're out of a van, barely making enough money to go to the next round. Yeah. So it kind of drops off. Yeah, a steep curve. I was racing in Australia. I could do pretty well for a couple months I was there. Depending it's all performance based too. Was another part of the stressful part for me anyways. I was never a high salary guy. I wasn't quite to the level where I was getting a lot of money in salary. So, if you win a race, awesome. You can make $5,000 to $10,000 in a weekend winning and keep your ride too. If you start doing bad, if you're not on the podium on top three, you're not making much money at the level I was, and then you lose your ride basically too. So it was always every weekend you showed up, you needed to do good to make money, and you're an independent contractor too. It's you and the bike, so it's all up to you to make it or break it. So it's definitely stressful in that part, but super, super rewarding. So that's one thing where a lot of professional athletes in general, I feel like, struggle with retirement because it's hard to, especially with racing, the adrenaline's through the roof, and to get that fulfillment otherwise it can be tricky. But
become addicted to the adrenaline.
Yeah, I think everybody does. Yeah, it's insane. Like literally sitting on the starting line, just start your bike up. Even before you start your bike up, just you're in a stadium packed full of people, you're about to race, and you got 20 other guys next to you that are all going to one corner, and only one guy's coming out with the lead, and you got bikes jumping next to you. Just that there's such a high risk. My heart rate would be, because we wear heart rate monitors when we ride just to track everything. My heart rate's 145 to 150, just sitting on the starting line, not even started your bike yet. Yeah. It was and it was scary too. But like I said, the rewarding part, once you finish, it's especially if you did well, so.
Post retirement, how do you get your fix?
Yeah,
how do you actually navigate that? Because I can imagine there's a lull, not quite the same.
Yeah, it's tough. I still ride a little bit, which is fun. Like I said, I had a pretty bad back injury, so it does bother me pretty much daily, and then riding it does a little bit. But so it's definitely a little bit higher risk if I would hit the ground again. So that's not ideal, but just trying to be the best at what you're doing, kind of, whether like now I do real estate, I'm a realtor. I do construction, just learning and trying to be the best at what you can be. I mean, the adrenaline, you can't really replace it, really. But with riding and stuff, it helps. It definitely helps get that fixed. But that's what a lot of athletes struggle with, once you're done, especially if you're at a high level. And that's all you knew for the first, around 25 years of my life. I had one goal, one mission, and then it all stops like that, So it's a little bit tricky to pivot. I was pretty smart along the way. As soon as I started making money, with the real estate stuff, with investing, I always wanted to have an exit plan kind of, because I knew it wasn't going to last forever. What the level I was at a good level, but not the type to where I'm making $5 million a year level, So yeah, so that's kind of how I got into real estate.
Hey, Iowa investors, this is Ava Bautkamp, Chief of Staff at Legacy Impact Investors. Have you thought about adding real estate to your portfolio but don't have the time or desire to play landlord? At Legacy Impact Investors, we do the heavy lifting. Our team finds the deals, manages the properties, and handles all the day-to-day operations. Our select group of qualified investors co-invest with us, gaining ownership equity without opening a tenant email or responding to a maintenance call. They just share in the income, appreciation, and tax benefits. These opportunities aren't for everyone. They are for qualified, accredited investors only. If you want to learn more, please visit legacyimpactinvestors.com to apply.
Yeah. So how did you get in? Tell me about that first property, and then maybe, what was the timeline, or did it overlap the motor?
Yeah. So back when I first started making money, obviously I was still living in a camper. And even, my big fear was I'm making money per weekend racing a dirt bike. I'm not really high salary. If I get hurt for 1 year, I make $0 that year. I'm actually spending money with the training facility. You still have equipment. You got to pay just all the normal life stuff. So, I didn't want to buy a house, get hurt 1 year, not be able to make the mortgage, foreclose on my house. So that was one of my biggest fears. So I had a buddy down at the training facility where he started kind of buying places in Panama City area, condos, renting them out. So I was like, man, that sounds kind of interesting. I'd like to do something like that. So I was talking with my dad about it. And, he's like, instead of that, why don't we just, buy some places back home in Fort Dodge? You can buy 5 or 6 properties for the price you can buy one down there, and then, we can buy foreclosures. Is around, let's see, what year would that have been? Around 2012. I started to turn professional. I started making a little bit of money, and then I started buying properties. So I actually owned 4 rental properties with my dad before I even owned a home, because I wanted to make sure, worst case scenario, I was cash flowing enough to be able to pay a mortgage on a home. So, and actually he was a hog farmer. I think he may have had 1 rental property at his old house he bought back. But so I kind of helped transform him into doing real estate as well too, because he's like, we'll buy it together. He'd help me find the properties and buy them while I was out racing. My season was from August to May or so. So summertime, I'd come back to Iowa. Instead of just hanging out and stuff, I'd be working on properties with him, fixing them up. We'd buy foreclosures, fix them up, then rent them out was our main thing. We didn't really flip. I wanted the monthly income from that. So it was kind of a cool story. He was big on hog farming, is super risky, obviously. I mean, real estate market's risky as well too, but hog farming, if you're,
a little risk.
Yeah, for sure. And if the market goes south and, he ended up losing his butt 1 year and kind of had to bail out of that, and kind of this is a lot safer. The way I looked at it on paper is, as long as it's cash flowing, somebody's always going to need a property. Sure. As long as you fix them up nice, have a decent property, because, you're going to beat out all the bad properties, say, times got tough or whatever. So really the risk wasn't really that concerning. When you first dive into anything slightly risky, you're always,
because of what you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know. So, yeah. But looking at it that way, I mean, people are always going to need a place to live. So, rent market could go up or down, but we were buying houses in Fort Dodge there for $20,000 to $30,000. And we were putting, sweat equity into them. Right. Also, that helped getting into them, right? They cash flowed really well. So it helped build quickly that way.
You did that for how long before you ended up?
So my first full year was 2012. Let's see, my last year was 2018. So about 6 years I raced for. So did okay. I'd say probably my best year racing, I made around 200 to 250 roughly. Not retirement type of money, enough money. I could have lived super comfortably and bought nice things. I was, for some reason, I think the biggest fear was afraid of a real job, kind of, once I was done racing. So I'm like, if I can get enough rental properties to make, by the time I'm done racing after these 6 years, which I didn't know the end was 6 years, right. But if I can earn $50,000 a year, I don't have to depend on a quote unquote real job. Yeah. So, or hourly job or stuff like that. So, I'm looking back, I'm motivated enough where not afraid to work. But at the time, I just was afraid of a real job. I think it's what it kind of comes down to a little bit there.
A lot of us in this business not afraid to work, just afraid to work for somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I didn't recognize that at the time. At first I was afraid to lose a house, because my job was so risky and not sure. You never knew when the next paycheck was coming. You could go one weekend and make $0 or make 10 grand or 16 grand was one of the biggest weekends I've had. So, but yeah, so that's kind of how I got into buying properties in Fort Dodge.
So you retired professionally in 2018. How many properties did you have at that time?
I don't know for sure. I don't know if I call it quite retiring, but got injured and quit. Some people look at retiring differently, but I knew I was probably never going to retire from racing dirt bikes. But I probably had, I want to say, between 15 to maybe 20 or so, roughly. And now we have, I think, just around 30 or so. And I got a couple on my own as well, too. And then my dad has another 10 or so on his own. So like I said, we bought them right and we put them on 10-year notes. So yeah.
Aggressive.
Yeah, very aggressive.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is you are very heavily focused on cash flow. You're going to want to put yourself in a financial position where you never have to work.
Yeah, exactly. There's later on, when I first was getting into real estate investing, I was just looking strictly at cash flow. Later on, even just recently, kind of realizing different markets, you can focus more on appreciation. You got most of the time, if you're looking at a higher appreciating property, it's probably not going to cash flow like a property in Fort Dodge. You can cash flow really well, but it's not going to appreciate at the same rate as a place in a prime area down here in Des Moines is going to. Early on, we were just strictly cash flow, and we were having 40 grand in a property total and getting $800 a month rent. So yeah, we were doing really well in the cash flow on site at the beginning. So
how do you manage properties today?
So I moved to Des Moines about, let's see, 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago or so. Before that, me and my dad would manage them. He manages most of them. He was a huge help in all that, especially when I was racing. He was managing them. So even now, he managed most of them. If I run back once to twice a week if I needed to. If I go back for a full week, I'll go back for a full week. Just try to split my time a little bit. We kind of pride ourselves on, I'm not saying there's a right way or wrong way to do rental properties, but we like fixing them up before people move into them. If you see a galvanized pipe that's not leaking now, but looks like it could be in the future or whatever, we like going in, fixing all the plumbing or having it fixed or whatever, making sure everything's ready to go when people move in. Cause it kind of sucks when you have to go in when people are living in there and it's a mess, or you're making a mess and people are living there. So it's not as much maintenance doing it that way, in my opinion. Whether you just buy a house, throw somebody in there, they're going to call you 10 times on different stuff. And especially when you're at the property working on it, you can notice a lot of, like, as you're working on it, like, hey, this furnace is acting up, or hey, this pipe is leaking here, or whatever. You eliminate a lot of phone calls you get, I think, especially when you buy a new property.
Sure.
In that sense. So yeah, we spend a lot of money reinvesting in our properties, keeping them up. And, if the outside's getting rough, we'll stick some money on the outside. And a lot of people think, renting out properties, it's get rich quick kind of deal. But if you keep a property up, especially if you're hiring a lot of stuff done, man, it eats into your income. Even if you do have it cash flowing decent, if you got to side it or put a roof on it, or, if you're paying a lot of people to do the flooring or whatever, man, it eats into your profits big time. That's why I think a lot of people struggle. I think we would struggle big time if we weren't doing a lot of the work ourselves. That's one thing, maybe to a default, especially now I'm working on 2 properties here in Des Moines. I'm flipping right now, and I'm kind of a cheap ass in a way, and don't really hire much done. I do everything on my own for the most part. I don't really mess with the HVAC stuff as much, but everything else, I went to the University of YouTube, actually. I got my degree there. So I learned a lot of stuff there on the construction side, because I never went to construction school or anything. And I have buddies in different trades and stuff that I can call and they'll help out. But yeah, we do a lot of manual labor ourselves, and you can make the properties make a lot more sense when you put more sweat equity into them.
Yeah, if you're willing to put the sweat equity into it and maybe account for it differently than somebody else, probably gives you a competitive advantage as it relates then to buying the property when you got to go in and bid.
Yeah. And like I said, as far as scaling and getting more properties and getting stuff done faster, depending on what my strategy is moving forward, I got 2 properties right now and one's kind of sitting there for a little bit, but yeah, it's kind of to default in a way. Some stuff is smarter to just get it higher done that way. Not sitting on it for longer. It costs you every month. You're paying interest on it, so, but yeah, probably to default a little bit, but I'm trying to mold into, not be quite so cheap on some things and just do it myself.
At some point you became a realtor. What year was that?
Yep. It was about, I think, at the end of 2022. So, I was, buying all these properties and fixing them up. And I was like, might as well be a realtor while I'm doing it. Ended up doing that and working for a place in Fort Dodge, and then ended up moving to Des Moines. Better opportunity. You're selling $300,000 to $500,000 homes, where Fort Dodge you're selling $50,000 homes to 200. I mean, the range roughly. Obviously, there's nice properties in Fort Dodge and there's bad properties in Des Moines too, vice versa. But
the average is
different. Yeah. So I work for Tammy Heckert with Greenland Homes as a new construction listing agent there for them. So, and I do buy, sell, work with investors as well too. So, I feel like I have a good upper hand on, looking at properties and, spot stuff. I work on everything in the home. I can spot out stuff and what's wrong with it. Not necessarily, obviously, new construction. They have everything perfect anyways, but as far as investors side with things like that and knowing how much work it is and stuff. So I kind of, I shouldn't say I'm a good realtor, but the sense I'm not really very salesy. So, if I see something in a property that's like, man, that's a lot of work, because I've done that, I'm not gonna be like, oh, but the home's super nice in this area. I'm like, that right there is a lot of work, so I kind of talk people out of buying houses a little bit, but I'm an honest guy and I want to be straightforward. I don't want to have somebody buy a property and like, you didn't tell us about this, ceiling falling in or whatever, but yeah, so I enjoy the real estate side. It's there's obviously, you can make good money in it and it's not as labor intensive on my back, so that's a plus. But yeah, I've enjoyed it so far and helping people find homes, but yeah, it's been good.
If you're a house flipper, execute the BRRRR strategy or do double closings and are in need of money, Little Guy Loans is your go-to lender here in the Des Moines area. Time is money. Loan approvals in 24 hours. Closings in 5 days. Little Guy Loans was founded by Neil Timmins, an investor just like you. Since he has been in over 10,000 homes in Des Moines, there's never an appraisal. Houses, multifamily, and commercial property loans up to $1 million. Check out www.littleguyloans.com.
How did racing and racing professional, how did that prepare you for what you do today? Like, investing and then operating all your investments. Sounds like that's the lion's share of your time. And then also being a realtor. With
racing dirt bikes, work ethic is insane value you learn with racing. Anybody that's good at racing dirt bikes, that's so much work for not much return. You're investing in yourself pretty much. So yes, it's fun. Learned how a lot of pain stuff. I don't know if the pain is really treated or prepared you for the future, but like I was saying before, riding dirt bikes is tremendously physical. As far as physically demanding as, obviously you got soccer and a couple of super gnarly sports. Our heart rates are 200 beats per minute for 30 minutes. And, you're using tons amount of energy and you got to train your butt off and be disciplined and on track stuff. You're constantly learning and taking risks, trying to, improve your time, hit corners better, hit jumps faster, all that stuff. So, and then on the back end of it, you got to, like at the train facility, we were working on our own dirt bikes, figuring that stuff out mechanically wise. Can be a little bit scary because obviously if you mess something up, it teaches you to be kind of OCD too. Because, if I'm working on my own bike, if something messes up, I'm getting injured. So it teaches you basically, a lot of dirt bike riders are OCD because everything's got to be perfect because it was such a high risk if it wasn't, so, and then obviously the gym on top of that, training to get more fit. And yeah. Just like I said, I think there's work ethic is one of the biggest things. So
it seems to me like in addition to what you just said, the outcome is performance based.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just like being a real estate investor, just like being an agent.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. It's very cutthroat too. Like you have a bad weekend, the team's not happy at you. None of your sponsors are happy. Like it's more than what people see on TV. Like it's just, guys out there having fun. It's a serious business and it's very stressful. And like I said, you're running your own business too. You can, if you cheat yourself on a training day or you're eating bad, You're just going to pay for it on Saturdays. You're not going to, perform as well. You're not going to be as fit. You're not going to, you might not win the race or, it's definitely, tough that way as far as you learn to not cheat yourself too. So you pay for it right there.
What are you most excited about in 2025?
I don't know. I just, I would say I'm just kind of addicted into investing and buying these properties and obviously I still do the real estate stuff too. Like I like doing both of it, the rental properties I'd say is my long-term future. That's my retirement plan. I invest fully in real estate. I've never had a real job. I don't have 401k, stuff like that. Yeah, I could invest on my own, but so that's, my long-term goal is to, get as many properties as I can and be wealthy one day. So just constantly trying to find deals on houses and fixing them up, and obviously the real estate stuff as well too. I like doing that side of things and trying to keep growing there. So the past couple of years I've increased quite a bit on my sales on real estate. So keep growing there and just trying to manage everything between the rental properties and real estate and flipping properties. I definitely stay pretty busy, but definitely like to focus on my real estate stuff. Somebody calls, answer. I definitely set that as a priority. That a lot of other stuff can wait. And then obviously rental properties, you're trying to get the next, place fixed up for the next person to get in as well too.
What attracted you to the flipping side of the business? Just big paydays so that can be redeployed back into rentals?
I guess it started more so with getting higher cash return on rental properties. We didn't really, when we're fixing up all these properties throughout the years, we've maybe flipped a couple, but 2 or 3 maybe. But mainly it's just getting higher return, buying the property right, fixing it up nice to where, we would live in any of our rental properties, So that's one thing we pride ourselves on is like, I would live in any single one pretty much, So basically just adding value that way through sweat equity. And then, if the property fits a flip a little bit better, if you still can get a deal on a property, but it's a higher end property that's not going to cash flow as much, then we'd maybe flip them. A couple deals I'm working on now, like I want to rent as much as I can. I don't care about cash now. I care more about, if they can get it to cash flow and building a monthly income and then appreciation and then someday owning the property and being able to, cash flow it really well. And yeah, like I said, I kind of maybe should diversify a little bit. I kind of got all my eggs in the real estate basket, which I'm happy with. Real estate obviously isn't going anywhere, so I'm not too worried about it. So it's been good.
Ready for the final 3 questions?
Yep.
Okay. If you had one piece of advice for your 20-year-old self, what would it be?
I don't know. I'm bad at these types of questions. I'd just say
they only get harder.
I'd have to say buying more properties when I could. I was very nervous getting into it at first, and making sure that they cash. Obviously, everybody looks back 10 years ago and says they should have bought more real estate. So yeah, exactly. But I'm grateful for how much I bought when I did. So you got to look at it both ways a little bit that way. But yeah, no, I wouldn't regret much. Like it had lived a pretty good life, especially my younger ages. Like racing a dirt bike for a living was pretty awesome. You had the injuries, sucked really bad, but I spent 7 days in ICU in Australia hospital by myself. That's probably one of my worst injuries, and that wasn't the one that took me out. But yeah, so that obviously pros and cons with everything, but that's what made it so rewarding on the other side. So, but yeah, I'd just say, buy more properties.
2 books that changed your life.
Oh, you're not going to like this answer, but I'm not really a reader. I'm a YouTuber.
All right.
So University of YouTube, remember?
Yeah.
Not really much on the reading. I do watch. My fiance is not too pumped with it, but I watch like building shows when I get home from work. Like I work on house all day, come home and watch like building shows, like learning more stuff on YouTube, which is better than I guess watching Netflix or something that you're not really learning off of. So I learned a lot of stuff off YouTube. Surprised,
All right, if you were cast away on an island for 1 year, you could only get 3 pieces of data about your rental business each and every month. What 3 things must you know every month to know how your rental business is going?
Well, it's nice having a partner, my dad. He helps me out a lot, so he can he manages a lot of it. But it's the rental business is can run itself obviously pretty well. Most all of our renters are good at getting rent on time. We're super fair and honest with them, and obviously we've had people tear places up, but it's relative when you do it the correct way and find the right people. It's relatively hands off and not a ton of hassle. rental business kind of, I guess, just making sure everybody pays on time or if rent's in for the month, I guess. Probably not the right answer that you want.
I'm curious as to how you handle repairs and maintenance requests or your portfolio in Fort Dodge, given that you live here.
Like I said, my dad handles with most of the tenants. If it's something small, he can handle it. If it's something, I run up there. As from my house to get to Fort Dodge is like an hour and 10 minutes. We get a lot of sewers. My dad, I make fun of him. He loves digging into the sewers. We're older home, cast iron pipes, roots get in the sewer, cast iron drain pipes. So, but yeah, I'll run back and knock a sewer out with him. We've done roofs. We need to do a roof, run back 3 or 4 days or whatever, help out with that. Any small stuff, like I said, he pretty much handles. But I'm an hour and 10 minutes. And like the nice thing with being a realtor and doing my own deal is I'm not stuck at a job until 5 o'clock at night where I can't. If it's something we need to run up there right away, then I can just run up there whenever, pretty much. So,
yeah, this has been a great conversation. I've asked you lots of questions. What's one question I did not ask that I should have asked?
I don't know. You did pretty good with the questions. I'm trying to think. Did pretty good. Like I said, hopefully I didn't get too much into the motocross stuff. As good touching on that. Yeah,
and unique background.
Yeah. So like I said, wouldn't change it for the world. It's very unique. But yeah, I feel like you nailed the questions pretty well. So there's nothing really I had on my mind that you didn't hit. So
for people who want to find you, follow you, connect with you, where can they go? What should they do?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Just search Gavin Faith. It's pretty unique name, so you'll be able to find me there pretty easy. Another thing that I was going to mention too is with the investing side, which, like I said, my fiance is not pumped on it, but I worked the 2-year no capital gains on primary residence. Been working that for quite a few years now, which is beneficial when doing flips and stuff. You move in a flip, and after 2 years, you don't pay capital gain tax. So now I'm young, we can get by with it. Obviously, we're getting married soon, so that might not to continue. So
move every
we'll
2
see.
years.
We'll see on that. So yeah, I'm not sure. We'll see. Especially if down the road you start having kids and stuff, it makes it a little bit more challenging. But if you're not paying taxes, it can make a little bit extra revenue. It's worth it.
It's the largest single expense for Americans in their entirety of a lifetime.
Realistically, you can move in 2 or 3 days out of the year, so it's not really that much to ask for. But
sure,
there's a lot of stuff that goes along with it. But yeah, that's one came to mind. That question, I guess, you didn't really necessarily get to, but yeah, find me on Instagram or TikTok, and if you got any questions, I'm an open book. So if anybody has any questions for me on anything, really, just call my direct cell phone if you want. You can find it on any of those Instagram pages, and yeah. Like I said, I'm easygoing and like to help people out as well too. If you're looking to get into investing, and I don't consider myself a genius investor, but I feel like I have a decent amount of knowledge to be able to help somebody out just getting started for sure.
Cool. Well, links are below in the show notes, everybody. Gavin, I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been awesome.
Thanks for listening. If you're enjoying the show, may I ask a favor of you? Naturally, subscribe so you never miss an episode. But would you rate and leave an honest written review on Apple Podcasts? Does a lot for us here at the show, and I appreciate reading your thoughts. Great guests make for a great show. If you know of another Iowan who would be a great guest, or you yourself have interest in being a guest, well, get on our radar. Visit Investing in Iowa to fill out an application or recommend a guest. And if you want to connect with me one-on-one, go to LegacyImpactInvestors.com. Click on the Invest With Us button in the top right corner, and there you can pick a time for the two of us to get on the calendar and connect. Until next time, keep investing in Iowa.